Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, listeners, whatever time you are listening. My beautiful guest is here with us at nighttime while it's afternoon by me. So, super honored that she's taking this time out of her evening for us. I am Maureen Scanlon. I am a master life coach. I specialize in self-worth, self-confidence, self-esteem, as well as relationships and dating. And I am an author, a speaker, entrepreneur, and a light worker. Just happy to be here in this time-space reality that I can help lift the vibration of humanity. And if you are open-minded and you do believe in the spiritual and things that we cannot see but we know exist, we welcome you here. We're so happy that you're here, and you're gonna absolutely love my next guest. She is stunning. First of all, she's coming to us from Spain, and her name is Sam Ritchie, and she's always been able to see and communicate with the spirit world. She's been space clearing for around 25 years. That's a long time. That was before space clearing and spirituality was cool, right?
Right.
when
Yeah.
when they called it woo woo. Over that time, she has studied and worked on her abilities to the point that she's now able to space clear using just a floor plan and an address. Fun. The results are amazing. She turns negative and sometimes harmful energy into positive and abundant energy. This gives the occupants a sense of well-being, calm, and clarity. It also helps businesses grow and increases the speed at which properties sell, plus many other benefits. How fun! Her aim is to help people live a happy, connected, and guided life. This, she believes, helps to raise the collective vibration and bring in positive changes for all of humanity. She's also an author of Echoes Within the Wall, author of Echoes Within Walls. Cannot wait to get into that. Without further ado, hi, my beautiful Sam. How are you, my love?
Hi, I'm very well, thank you.
This is exciting. And I love your questionnaire, and there's something specific that sort of resonated with me that I want to start off with. So here on I Never Knew, since everyone is so magnificent, and by the time you come on here, you've been doing great works, and you're enlightened and fantastic. But we all kind of started at a place where we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know where we were supposed to go, how to fulfill that purpose, or what legacy we were supposed to leave in this physical world. And one thing that you said that really, I always ask, what is kind of your lowest moment in your life? And or when you feel lost, lonely, or hopeless. And your answer was, as a child and a teenager, living in a different world to everyone else was confusing, and I found people frightening. And I really resonated with feeling different. So, if you could share with us, we call it the knee story here, which is sort of that moment in your life or moments you're on your knees and you're saying, I don't know what's going on. Why am I here? What am I supposed to do? This doesn't feel like I'm fulfilling my destiny, or things just need to give. So do you have any particular moment or profound epiphany moment that you could share?
Yeah, I think I was probably about 12, and I'd spent my whole childhood being terrified. If the doorbell rang, I'd hide. I was that terrified. The teachers would call my mum into school regularly because I would physically shake walking across this classroom. I was totally petrified of real people.
Wow.
Because then I was more in the spirit world than I was in the human world. And when
Wow.
I got to about 12, it was like a switch went off, and it was like, this isn't how to live a human life. You have to get over yourself. You have to get out there and not be scared of people. So I made a conscious decision. As I said, I was about 12, I think, to not be that terrified child anymore. And that was a real turning point. Obviously, still, as a teenager, seeing the things that I saw, because I could see the history of places. If there was, I would see people at the side of the road that weren't actually there. And there was times when I would shout out that there was someone stood in the middle of the road. And so I had all of that going on. But after that decision, it was made a lot easier.
Wow. I mean, thinking about this, listeners, 12. I mean, I was probably still playing with Barbies at the time and had no, no thought to consciousness and how advanced and what an old soul that you have that at 12 years old, you knew that I had to do this thing and I'm going to consciously change this and not be afraid, which most people cannot do even, in their 40s and 50s. Um, that to me is incredible. I always say animals and children are closest to the spirit world. They have not been
Yeah,
tainted yet. They are more pure and innately loving, in my opinion, which is why everything I do
I
is
agree.
surrounded with dogs because I just feel there's no cloudiness there. There's no gray areas. It's just pureness. Wow, to be that terrified of humans because wow, because there's such a difference in spirit to humanity, and you have to kind of reconcile that when you're living. And I think as we get older and we live life, we sort of learn how to reconcile. I didn't understand spirituality until I was like in my mid 40s. So at 12, oh my gosh, was that
I
scary?
didn't really under yeah, I didn't really understand what I was doing. It was just more of I have to change something. I cannot spend my whole life being this terrified. Don't get me wrong. It wasn't a one and done decision.
Right, right.
There's
And like
been
I
lots of
said,
things that terrify me.
right. And like I said, from it being so long ago, people were not that accepting of it. I feel like, with obviously media and, shows where they have mediums and stuff like that, the New York Girl and John Edwards and stuff. But that wasn't widely accepted. How were your family and friends trying to understand you, or did you feel even more secluded because you saw these things that people didn't?
I was very lucky. Both my parents were very psychic, although I didn't know that my stuff until my mum died, um, because she was terrified, which my aunt does this sort of work as well. And so if we were together, we'd wind my mum up. And we had a resident spirit who lived in our house. But mum was so terrified of us, she would not go to bed without the light being left on in the hallway. So I
Wow.
grew I grew up in this family that was very spiritual, but it was like it wasn't poo-pooed, but it wasn't talked about. And
Mm.
later on, I found out that my great grandmother used to read tea leaves, and apparently she was very talented at it.
Gosh.
Again, it wasn't talked about, it was just there. So, although a lot of my family are not this way, there is pockets that are. So it was yeah, it wasn't poo-pooed, but it wasn't talked about. So it was strange.
I love that so much pockets and it's in your DNA. There's some strong DNA ties to that to those abilities and you and I both know that everyone has a psychic ability and they say you can hone in on it. I don't personally, my own abilities came when I finally was in my purpose, and I was telling you at 45, that's when I knew I was supposed to be coaching and helping people live their best life. I had healed. I don't know that I would have known how to hone in on these abilities before that because it was kind of just thrown in on me when I started coaching. I started getting visions and then started doing readings. And I, like you, always felt different. I always believed there was so much more to the human existence. I remember thinking I'm meant for bigger things. I just don't know what it is. And I wasn't in a family that that believed any of that stuff. Just wasn't, no, not religion or spirituality was talked about in my home. So I was floundering. I'm out there on a limb, like I have no idea what's going on. Am I crazy or what? So what did you discover about the space clearing ability that you had? How did you hone in that talent?
Okay, so I was always fascinated by buildings. As a small child, I was always fascinated by buildings, and I could see the auras, although they were always white around buildings. And um, so my first proper job was as an estate agent, which sort of fell into my lap, but it suited me perfectly because I loved buildings.
Yeah, I
So, but
did.
what I didn't know at the time was I had an ability to sell properties that other people just couldn't sell. And it's now looking back, I was space clearing them without actually knowing I was doing it. So there was a few times where there was spirits lingering that I moved on, um, but not huge amounts. And they're not, the spirituality side of things sort of got put on a back burner for quite a few years. And I got married, I had kids, and we moved into this house. And I met a friend of a friend. And I was saying to her, she was spiritual. And I was saying, I know there's no spirits in my house, but there's a darkness in my house. And I don't know how to get rid of it. And she said, you want to look up space clearing. So I was like, what's that? So she told me what it was in a very rudimentary way, because as you say, internet wasn't really a thing so much then. You couldn't Google search it like you can now. And so I space cleared my house. So I basically used my hands to clap, incense to smudge the area with the smell. And that was it. But as I was doing it, I saw all the history of the house. So when I saw this friend again and excitingly told her all the things that I'd seen, she went, you do realize not everyone can see these things when they space clear? Like, no, that's normal, right? so, so from that point, I've always space cleared our houses that we've lived in, and we've lived in a lot. And I always, if someone had a problem, for example, I met someone who had a bad smell in their house. I was like, let me come and space clear it. So I went and space cleared this house, told them what I saw, the smell vanished. And so I've always done it like that for friends and family, but I haven't, only just the last couple of years been doing it professionally. So what happened was during lockdown, I suddenly had time because I was working in kitchens. I'm a cook as well. And so I was working in kitchens, and suddenly lockdown happened, and all the bars shut. So that was me out of a job, which gave me the time to study with Kyle Gray and read oracle cards. So I did about 500 readings for free, and then people started wanting to give me money. And I was like, hang on a minute, I could actually possibly feed my family doing this. So then on my website, I put space clearing, thinking that it would be like a nice thing if anyone came up, but I live in rural Spain. How much need is there really in the area I live? I've got to be able to get there. And you've either got to have a problem or be spiritually minded to call on me.
Yeah.
And then a friend whose house I space cleared here contacted me and said, Sam, I've got this huge problem. I've got this house that I rent out. It was my grandparents' house. It needs major maintenance work doing. I can't get in. The tenants will not let me in. They will not let the builders in. And I'm pulling my hair out. This maintenance has to be done. Otherwise, the house is going to start falling apart. Can you do it from a floor plan and an address? I said, honestly, have no clue. I have no clue. And so I said, but I'll give it a go. I got the information through and I started drawing it out. And as I was drawing out the plan that she sent me, all this information started coming through. I was like, okay, clearly I can do this. And then the best thing happened. Within 24 hours, the tenants had agreed to let the builders in. And I was like, this works.
You're like, I
Not only am I getting the information, but I'm getting the results.
love that so much because first of all, bless your heart, 500 unpaid. I mean, I did a lot of free stuff coaching at the very beginning. But 500 is a lot. And but it's so funny because I think it takes us sort of believing in our abilities before we feel like somebody else can pay us for that
Yeah.
value. And then once we do, then we're like, oh, okay, I have proof. It's funny how we as humans always need proof of everything. And especially when you have the psychic abilities, I always find myself sort of having to tell the story of, oh, this is what happened. I got this right. How, and I always say this, how would I know that? Like, it's almost like people instill sort of their skepticism in you, even though you know what you're seeing and doing. So
Yeah.
that's fun. I, like you, am fascinated by buildings. I'm on, or when I was on TikTok, I was fascinated with videos of abandoned places. And if these walls could talk, I'd like, who lived here? What happened? When you see a building where someone just left everything and everything's just sitting there, the whole life, their possessions, everything, pictures. It just to me is like, what happened? Have you ever had experiences with that, with like abandoned buildings that had something dark where they had to leave right away or anything like that?
Um, I've it's not really abandoned, although it's not lived in. I've been asked to space clear a property in, let me get it right, Mallorca. And that was so obviously from a floor plan, I'm on mainland Spain. And this property, no wonder it wasn't selling. Honestly, it was like a portal to the devil, and I never seen anything like it. And before that point, I would have said there is nothing demonic. There's spirits that aren't good, but they're not normally demonic. This was demonic, and I actually had to leave it in my office and go out of the room about 4 times because it was so ooh. So although it wasn't abandoned, it's not lived in, and no one could have lived in it under that. The people that had lived there, the owner of it, confirmed all started suffering from mental health issues, personality changes, greed like you would not believe. So what I did was psychically put like a metal lid on it so that the demonic stuff couldn't get out. But I honestly didn't think there was such a thing as demonic energy until I space cleared that house. So it's a learning curve for me as well. I love those pictures you were talking about as well. Although I have to be careful because sometimes I get like, whoa, way too much information when I look at them.
Oh, see, I love that because I'm like, I want to know, I want to know. I mean, I know there's been some like with old cars and oh my gosh, there's a story. And I think for me, the fascination just with being in this human life is like stories. Obviously, I do this podcast, to tell
Yeah.
stories. Um, and I love psychology, so I like figuring out why people do what they do. I love that you said that because I was actually going to ask you about the dark because when I first started doing my mediumship, I was like, I don't want anything bad coming in. And when I would do cards, I make sure that I protect myself and I don't allow anything that is not light into my conscious. And that's something we both share in telling the listeners if you're gonna work on your psychic abilities, um, definitely protect. You have to protect
It is so
yourself.
important. In fact, there is a free meditation on my website to protect your energy.
I love
And
that.
before anyone does even considers space clearing the house on their own, protect your energy just in case.
Oh my gosh, I love that you do that because it can happen and then it can attach itself and you don't know why and you don't know what it is. Like there's some of these I'm gonna call them out, the Ghost Adventure show where they call out these spirits and I'm like, don't do that. I'm literally yelling at the TV like, don't taunt them. Don't open yourself up to that. And they've had a lot of bad experiences with them coming home with them and I don't think they do it anymore, but it's a very I think a thin line, don't you, between allowing that darkness in?
Yeah, look, for me, I there's an English version, Most Haunted, which isn't on anymore. I watched it like it was a comedy show because I was so scared. It was just hilarious. Um, but as far as I'm concerned, if you're going looking for spirits, then you want to be able to help them and not leave them there stuck because they're earthbound, they're stuck here. And that isn't, in my, I don't believe that's right. I think we should be helping them move on. Having said that, those shows do have a purpose and because it does show people that there is more than we can see.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree with you. I think when I see videos of like poltergeist activities and stuff like that, it's got to be so terrifying for people. That's your space. Your home is where you're supposed to be the most secure and feel comfort and protection. And so I think your work is so important and so crucial. So when someone, and I think you're right, the shows are important because it helps people who are experiencing it to see what to look for. Like if they don't know what's happening, but they see these shows and like, oh, that happens at my house, or
Yeah.
objects. A lot of stuff attaches to objects. Why do you think spirits stay in a location and don't move forward? Is there an understanding of that? Have they shared that at all?
Yeah. I think there's a number of reasons. The first is they don't know they're dead,
Okay.
right? So if someone's died very quickly, they might not realize they're dead. So they're still replaying living. If they've got unfinished business, so if they don't, and that's normally the the ones that we don't really want to see, normally have unfinished business,
Wow.
or they want control and they're not prepared to let go of control. So
Wow.
they're the earthbound spirits. And then you have the family members who come in, they're not earthbound, they come in to give love. Now we leave them alone, right?
Yeah.
We want as much love as possible, right?
Yes.
So then
Yes.
they're not stuck here. They're not earthbound. They can go between this dimension and other dimensions at will. And so we leave them be, right? Because they're just bringing love. It's the earthbound ones that we want to move on to the light and help them on their spiritual journey.
Yes. Yes. And I deal with the loved ones, which thank goodness oh, thank you. Yeah, I do that with the ones that visit and give the signs, especially for those who, you know, don't understand the other realm where they think, this is it. This is finality. And I love being able to say, this is a finality. They were here at your wedding, or they,
Yeah,
they wanted me to tell you about when you were a child and you went to Disneyland. And it just blows people away that, oh my gosh, they are with me. And what a peace, that brings. But yeah, you're right. That's so interesting. So the ones that don't know that they're dead, the unfinished business, and then the earthbound, and then
control. Yeah.
control, and then the loved ones. So I have an interesting story, and I'm going to throw in some pets because I believe that pets stay and come and visit, and so I have a couple of fun stories. One, this is really neat. I lived in Arizona pretty much my whole life. We moved to Scottsdale. We bought an older home. It was built in the 50s. And the woman who owned the home that we bought passed away in the home. She was 101 and she owned all the land. And I mean, this was like horse and buggy time. And they said they wanted to build homes. And she said, only if you build the house I want. Well, ours was the one that they built, and she loved pink. So we had pink countertops, we had pink paint. It was adorable. It was like the Mary Kay house. It was super adorable. And she would bake. She loved to bake. And I only know this from a neighbor who had been there originally when she lived there as well. She'd bring cookies and whatever. And the laundry room was it was a weird thing. It was outside the kitchen door. So it was sort of on a patio, but outside. And I would see her walking by and doing laundry. And one day I was moving the washer and I found a picture, an old black and white picture, and I knew it was her. And I would just talk to her. I would just say, they called her Grandma Tag, and I'd say, hi, Grandma Tag, how are you today? She'd walk by. At night, I would hear my baking pans making noises, and I was not afraid. And I think that story I tell because don't we intuitively know if it's a good spirit or a darker spirit?
Yeah, yeah. And I think if everyone's heard the phrase, you could cut the atmosphere with a knife,
Okay.
right? And that's what we experience when we walk into something that's got, and not necessarily a spirit, it can just be an imprint. So
Oh.
with space clearing, it's almost like a block of clay and someone puts a hand on it and it's the biggest hand. So the biggest event leaves the biggest imprint. So if that was a positive, like your lady with her cooking, the positive was the strongest imprint, as well as her not physically being there, but as well as their spirit being there. So also the house would be giving off that really comfortable vibe because that was the biggest imprint. Whereas if it is something traumatic, then that will be, we've all walked into places and you think this is really beautiful, but I don't like it. Right?
Yeah.
There's something a bit off.
Yeah.
and and that's the imprint energy as well. It's why people find burial grounds and cemeteries spooky. It's
Mhm.
not because there's a lot of spirits hanging around. Why would they want to be where their body is?
Yeah.
This is just a meat suit. It's the imprint of all the grief that we're picking up.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, you're absolutely right. What fascinates me is when the spirit world is able to get physical. And that's to me that's it can be fun like rattling my baking pans, or it can be scary when it scratches people or gives them, like you said, the mental health issues or illness, actual physical, illnesses. Do we know why that is? I know I'm trying to make you into like a, scientist here and give us answers, but what do you think? What is your understanding from your experience?
Okay, so the two times the spirit has had a physical impact on me. Well, once they didn't because I saw her coming. Um, but the other time, so I was viewing a house. I was never going to buy this house. I didn't like the area. I was never going to buy it, but someone had arranged the viewing for me, so I went. And this spirit woman followed me up the stairs, and she really was not happy. By the time we got to the third floor, she was stood up the top of the stairs and she went to push me, but I saw her, so I moved. The estate agent was like, "Oh, was there a cobweb?" I just said yes because it was easier than trying to explain. But she wasn't inherently bad. She just didn't want me living in her house. Fair enough. The other time was when I was space clearing for someone, and this very, very evil man. He wasn't demonic, but he was evil. And I was space clearing, and my physical features in my face changed. And my client was like, oh my God. And to be fair, I was a little bit shocked because it never happened to me before. But
Yeah.
then I work with angels and I could see all my angels around me. And I knew that they weren't going to let him attach to me or get any closer. They just were allowing him to do that to give my client physical proof. So I think it's about control again. I think it's the spirits that want control and were evil that try to hurt you.
Yeah. I agree with you there. And I was just thinking space is a very important thing. And there's a thing that they say, about residual energy. It doesn't mean there's actually a spirit there, but it's like residual to what was occurring at that time that spirit was there, correct?
Yeah. So residual energy would be like, this is how I see it. It's like we have memory and we're energy. So
Mhm.
that means that if everything is energy, then a property is energy,
Yeah.
right? And we all have memories and we all replay the good and the bad in our minds. And the property does the same. So that's the residual energy I'm talking about. It's the memory of what's happened in the past.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. I agree. I think it's because the energy doesn't end, it's just transferable. So that would
Yeah.
make a lot of sense. And I don't think I've ever shared this before, listeners, but my gosh, Sam is just like, I could talk to you forever because I've had so many experiences like this and I've never been able to share this with anyone. And I believe part of it was like maybe a past life experience, but in Tombstone, Arizona, there is an old town, western town, and there's a bar, restaurant, dance hall called the Birdcage Theater, and that was one of the last stops when they were going west in America before they stopped in San Francisco during the gold rush. And Tombstone was known for their silver, so there were a lot of people that would stop. There were a lot of entertainers, so a lot of actors and actresses and dancers, and the piano is still there, the French wallpaper is still there, the carriage that took the dead to the graveyard up the hill. I mean, all of it is original. The table where I think it was Wild Bill Hickok had the longest poker game is still there with the cards I mean, it is amazing. But I was in there and I've gone, I went 3 or 4 times, and every time I went, I had really interesting experiences. And the main thing was in the brothel. So there's a brothel downstairs in this, and the entertainment was upstairs, the bar and that. And then when you go down, there's a brothel and it's kind of in a U. All the rooms are exactly the same. Like the beds are messed up, the booths are there. It's just, to me, it's fascinating because I love the Old West. And I'm in there, and when I'm in there, I was experiencing something where I heard, "Get out of my space. You're always in my space. Stop invading my space. They're always here. I'm so exhausted." And I had asked a psychic one time, I said, "What is that?" And she had said, "I think that's a tie that you were there." And I said, It wasn't just a spirit that's saying that to me." And it's funny because it got intense when the people who were in period clothing came into the area. That one of the incidents. But I always had this feeling of, kind of like when you were scared of humans in grade school. I always had this anxiety when I was in that space, like people were suffocating me. What do you think that means? What could that be?
Yeah, it could definitely be a past life thing. Or it could be you were picking up on the energy of the space, or both.
See, I believe that wholeheartedly. I went to the graveyard and it goes in this path where you walk like kind of hairpin pathway. And I would walk, I'd be in the middle and I would be like doubled over like someone punched me in the stomach. And then I'd walk and I'd be okay. I'd come back to the middle of that and I would do it again. My husband was with me and I'm just like, "Ugh, I don't feel good. I don't feel good." And we're trying to look at the headstones in that area. Like, did I have a tie? I felt my husband and I sort of deciphered, I had a really significant tie to the city, to the town, and I think I was a protector of the girls or the people who received injustice, because today I'm this huge advocate of injustice. Like, I am all about what's right and what's fair. So I feel like I protected the town. I was really big on protecting the town. Is that something common that you can? And then when we left, we went to the car. I was fine. I was completely fine. What is that physical experience that we get from spirits when you're in an area that you may have a past life tied to?
Yeah, so I had a similar experience when we went to Gibraltar,
Okay.
but I know exactly what it was, and it wasn't past life. As I walked through the gates, there were so many spirits that wanted to communicate that they took my breath away. And I
Okay.
had to, and I'm not in a hurry to go back, although I would be quite interested to space clear some properties there because it's different when I'm working. When I'm
Oh,
working, it's like it doesn't affect me so severely. And this was a while ago, so it was before I really understood about protection, which is why protection is so important. And churches are the same,
mm.
especially here in Spain, because it seems that there is such a history of the churches not being all that great here with the Spanish Inquisition. And then you had Franco as well, right? So the church
Oh,
was all right in the middle of that. Um, However, some churches were havens. So, like Seville, for example, I've been to the cathedral there and I walked in, and all I could see was people like it has like alcoves where they have statues and paintings and stuff. But all I could see was people sleeping there and eating there. And I couldn't understand it until I looked up the history. It was because the government were not allowed to cross a line outside the church and get in.
wow. Yeah, that was um their fortress. That was basically their
Yeah,
only way to be safe, and you really, touched on and could see, the suffering and how many people were there. And it's just absolutely fascinating. Why do you think it's different when you're working versus personal outside of the protection part of it? Is there a detachment maybe you do as you work versus personal?
I think, well, although I'm much better at, well, I protect my energy every single day now. And in the past I didn't. And it was like, oh crap, I haven't protected my energy. And then stuff would happen. And now I do it every single day. So before I leave the house, I do it in the shower. I love doing it in the shower because, I have a shower before I go out. So it takes no more time and I do it automatically now. And I think that was the major thing then. So now it's a bit different. However, it's almost like the angels and my guides are like, okay, she's working now, so we're gonna all put our armor up. We're all gonna put the shields up, and she can get on with it. She can see everything, and I do still sometimes. I was space clearing for someone last week, and I had this huge headache as I was doing it. I was like, whoa, and so I messaged my client and I said, "Are you suffering from headaches at the moment?" He's like, yeah, how did you know that? I was like, because I felt it.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh, you knew exactly what they'd been experiencing.
Yeah, but it's fleeting. When I'm working, it's fleeting. It's almost like they give it to me to show me what's going on and then they take it away again.
Mm.
Whereas when I'm not working, it can be longer.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's almost like, okay, you only have an hour. When you're working, you only get an hour to show me. And then, but in personnel, they're like,
Yeah,
oh, we're gonna hang out for a few hours. Oh my gosh,
yeah,
that's so fascinating to me because, well, first of all, too, the uncertainty of what you're ever walking into or what you're ever coming across as far as, energetically, you just it's an unknown. And I too, before I coach, do the same thing, and I never used to, and it would affect me. I would take on, as an empath, I would take on their pain, their sadness, their all of that, and then I started being like, okay, no, 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 I got a little shield around me. When you talk about your angels and your guides, I'm a spirit guide medium, and so I know exactly what you're talking about. You have a crew around you, listeners. I'm gonna tell you this because I've seen it. You know, you have mentors, you have protectors, you have angels, you have guides, you have ancestors, you have all of this big protection around you. And so even though we feel alone in the physical world, you are never alone. And I love that they're there for you to help you do your work. Now, it's very important, and you're going to help me with this. I know how important it is to clear the energy in my home, and I'm told at least once a month to do it. And I have a sign. It's so funny. I just put this up. That's funny. I must have put it up right when you and I arranged to do this. And it says, please be mindful of the energy you bring into this space. I have a sign when you walk in my front door, and that is what it says. And I fell in love with it. I was like, oh, this is it. Because people bring with them their stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I work with a businessman once a month, space clear. He has a huge industrial plant in the UK, and I space clear that for him where he has got a couple actually, and we alternate which plants because you've got so many different people coming in with so many different energies all the time, then it can really affect a business
Oh my
as well
gosh.
as the business owners. So I work with them on a monthly basis.
That's
But
fantastic.
yeah, you really need to know that you do pick up. You know, when you've spoken to someone and they're all bad news and it you come away feeling absolutely exhausted and drained. Well, that's the same if they walk in your house. They're leaving that energy, with
Yeah.
your house. So
Right.
yeah, you definitely need to be mindful of what energy you're allowing into your space. And
Now, I,
it
go ahead. I was going to say, I
it
know
is
yours is
easy
way
for
more
spirit.
elaborate than what most of us do. And I want to know, I'm very simple. I just burn my sage, and you're supposed to I go around the windows, and I go around, the closets, and I just basically say, all negative energy or dark energy is to leave, and all positive light is to stay. That's basically all that I do. And I do my dogs, and I do me. And so I know yours is way more elaborate. Can you tell us, if someone were to call you and say, "Hey, can you clear my space?" What are the first steps? How does that work?
Okay, so the first thing would be why do they want it cleared? All right, and that can be a number of reasons. It can be they're interested to see if I can pick up what they know about the property because I don't want to know anything. Um, they might want to be selling their house and it's well priced and there's just no interest and there's no reason, there's no physical reason for that. Or they might have a bad smell or they don't feel comfortable in one area of the house. They have trouble sleeping is another one. I even had a client who lost weight, only one though, after space clearing the house. But that was a extreme situation. The energy in her house was literally weighing her down. It was really bad. And there was bad, evil entities in the property as well. So it was no big surprise that it was physically weighing her down. But even if you see nothing when you're space clearing, if you know that you are clearing the energy, it's the intention. So everyone can do it. And what I would suggest to you is to clap as
Okay.
well, because the sound moves the energy and concentrate on the corners because the energy gets stuck in the corners. Now, obviously, we can't reach the corners of our ceilings, but you can with your mind. So you clap and you intentionally face the corner so that you're moving that energy. And then sage, incense, Palo Santo. I use all three, but you can use any or of them. They all are brilliant. If you've got bells, now I love bells. That again really helps to move the energy. And a singing bowl, if you've got a singing bowl, that smooths the energy.
I love all
But
of this so
intention,
much. I never thought the sound. I have a singing bowl. I mean, all of this, and I knew that, especially when you have which is why a lot of buildings they do round. Have you ever seen that? Because of that reason is
yeah.
to not have that energy stuck. And even in your closets, listeners, you're supposed to go in your closets. Isn't there a way? Is it right? Is it right to left? So you go around your house, you start right to left? No?
No, so I start wherever feels right.
Okay.
So when I walk into a property, I set up, I call it an altar. It's not really, but a little space for all my bits and bobs. And I like candles as well. So I have candles there. I put my bells there. I put my singing bowl there. I have the Palo Santo, the sage. I put a joss stick on, and I put crystals because I love crystals too. Uh, and I put that in a space. So it might be in the entrance of the building, it might be in one of the rooms. It's wherever happens to go, that's where it wants to go today. So I just do what I'm told. And so there's never any fixed way I go around a house or a room. I just go around what feels right for that particular space.
Yeah, yeah. I
And
really, and there's nothing
it's
particular to say. Is there something,
I
um,
call in the angels.
okay.
I always call in, and you can just say angels, guides. It doesn't really matter. But if you say thank you, it's like it's already done. So I always say, thank you, Archangel Michael, for protecting me. Thank you, Archangel Metatron, for using your magenta light and your sacred geometry to clear the energy of this space. If someone wants to sell their house, then I call on Lord Ganesh as well to remove all obstacles. And I always thank them for showing me what I need to see. And sometimes I don't see anything. Normally I do see stuff, but sometimes, very rare occasions, I see nothing. But the results are the same. The results are the same. And normally it's within 24 hours. If it's not, it's within a week, 2 weeks. And if there's been no change, and I'm doing it remotely, then I redo it because that's not our deal. So
Yeah.
it's like, hang on, that's not our deal. Sort it out.
That's not our deal. Don't break our deal. We had an agreement. I love that so much. Oh my gosh. I, and I do believe if we remove fear, and I'm going to say this to any skeptics who they know they've witnessed something or they have felt something, but they're skeptical because their human brain or what they've been told their belief system says that's not true, it doesn't exist. Just stay open-minded because they're not all bad. Just as Sam was saying, it's
No.
not all bad, and pay attention to your dogs and your children. I mean, these beautiful little souls, they're so pure and they are only going to bring pureness. And I remember when I told you about that home with the older lady who passed, Grandma Tag, my son was born when we lived there, and I would find him in the crib just giggling and having a conversation and like reaching up, and I'm like, oh my goodness, she's a grandma. Of course he's gonna like
Yeah.
love her. It was the most precious thing. And it's like, I love that. I love that we have this tether. And if we remove that fear that a lot of people have, it's actually kind of fun to unite the two worlds. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I do. And also, if you are skeptical, just try clapping and listen, really listen when you clap because you can hear the change.
Oh, see,
Because
I'm gonna try that one so much. Now, here's an
you can hear
interesting.
it starts off quite muffled, and then it gets sharper.
Oh, and you can hear energy
You can hear the
moving.
energy changing, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And anyone can do that. Even if you think you're not spiritual at all, you think this is a load of rubbish, try it because you will hear it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I'm going to say as a medium, when your loved one's passed, I'm telling you, they will give you signs. They will send you stuff consistently to get your attention. They will do everything they can to let you know. And some spirits, like you said, they're stronger than others. Sometimes I'll do a reading and it's like pulling teeth, and I'll say, "Come on, give me more, give me more, give me more." You know, they're either they're newer spirit in the spirit world and they don't know how to work the energy quite yet to communicate with me. If they're older, like ancestors and stuff, man, they tell me exactly who they are and where they're coming from and what they're doing for you. So it's fun to see. Your personality never changes in spirit. It's exactly as it was, and it's fun to connect with like feisty grandmas and say, "Oh, she was really feisty," and they'd go, "How'd you know that?" I'm like, "I can tell you because she's feisty right now." Um, Animals. So this is interesting. So when we moved here to Austin, Texas, 2 years ago, this the coming week, and my favorite puppy, who is on my cover of my first book, passed away. So this is this little guy right
Oh,
here. And I have a little, just like you, I have his paw print, I have his ashes, I have crystals, I have my singing bowl, I have a little Buddha, and just all my fun stuff in honor of him. But he passed when we were in Arizona, where we moved from, and I was kind of like, oh, I hope he doesn't stay there. Like, I kind of want him with me because I do believe that, they're with us. So the very first week, I think it was that we moved here, I was doing my makeup in the vanity. And I have an Australian Shepherd now who doesn't have a tail. And then I have a little Chihuahua. And, they have like a little whippy tail. And Brody had this big floofy, we used to call him Floof because he had this big floofy tail. And as I'm doing my makeup in the vanity, I see this big floofy tail walk
how
behind
lovely.
me. And I was like, I knew it was him, and I had so much joy. He came with us. He came
Yeah.
with us. So there's nothing stopping them from coming with us, right? They're not stuck where they pass.
Well, my gran visits quite often, and that's her clock behind me. That's I had to buy the furniture for her clock to sit on.
Yes, yes, aesthetic.
But if I don't wind it up, and it doesn't keep the right time, but
Right.
if I don't wind it up, she moves the plates on my dresses.
Yes, she does. Yes, she does. She was very particular, was she not? She was very I want to say almost
Yeah,
OCD, like she would straighten stuff up. She liked things her way, a particular way.
she definitely liked things her way.
Yeah, and she did not like she was, I don't want to say controlling, but very particular. Like it was only right if it was her, if it was in order the way she liked it to be, is
No, if
what.
it was her way, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's I'm certainly getting that. And you know what? She doesn't care that it doesn't keep time.
I
Um,
know she doesn't, and nor do I actually.
yeah,
It
no.
chimes non-stop for about 12 hours, which drives everyone else in the house up the wall, and I love it.
Oh my God,
It
I
just,
love it
I
so
just
much.
giggle for the whole 12 hours.
She likes that you get that. She likes it because she could care less. She's like, I don't care. I don't care if that thing chimes or if it takes time, if it keeps time. Doesn't matter to me. But she loves that you have it. She loves that you look at
Yeah,
it and you think about her, and that's when she connects with you. Is when that thing chimes. You're like, ah, Grammy, I hear you. I hear you. So,
yeah.
I just, I got so much from you, and oh, good. We're great on time. Where can we, let's talk about where we can find you, where people can arrange to have a space clearing, as well as your fantastic book, which I cannot wait to read.
Yeah, well, it's on pre-order now
Okay.
worldwide through every major books, well, every bookshop, I'm told, and digitally on every platform, and it's Echoes Within Walls.
Goes within walls. Oh my gosh. Tell us about the book. Are they stories? What is it? Is
So
it?
yeah, it's a collection of the stories, some of which I've told you bits of, but I haven't told you about the palaces. So you need to read the book to find out about the palaces.
Yes.
And they're very interesting because they have escape tunnel. Well, one of them has an escape tunnel. So yeah, so it's the stories, the histories of the houses, some of the houses I've space cleared, some of the entities and spirits that I've met along the way, as well as the basics of how to do it yourself, a few prayers in there as well. We touch on Feng Shui very slightly. I am no expert, but sometimes I get told stuff. So that's in there too. And ley lines as well, energy lines, we touch on in the book as well. So yeah,
Sounds
it's
great. Sounds fun and informative and intriguing and oh my gosh, I love that. I cannot wait. I'm so gonna get that. I'm so behind in my reading, but I'm definitely gonna go order that. Now, you are giving this free meditation, which I absolutely love.
yeah,
Where
on my
do they
website.
Good, where do they get
So
that?
yeah, if you go into the blog section of my website, there's meditations for free on there.
Okay.
And the protecting your energy is one of those. And that's samangelguide.com.
Yeah, angelguide.com. And listeners, I'll have that for you so you don't have to remember it.
Yeah.
SamAngelGuide.com. I'll have that link for you. I'll also have a picture of her book so that you guys will know what to look for when you go to order that. And it's on pre-order at your website right now, right?
Not on my website, Amazon.
Oh, at Amazon.
Am Amazon and bookshops
Wow.
and all digital formats too.
You
Um,
are such a joy, and I am so happy that you were here today. I was telling listeners this year has been so fun because I've been really aiming to have a lot more upbeat and unique and different stories, and you fit right in perfectly with what I'm aiming to do, a little bit lighter stuff this year because things can be heavy. And on that note, what I do is I end it with a little segments that I made up. So I want to know, let's see what segment. I'm going to go with, because I need it. This segment is, I want to know what is the last thing you purchased or the weirdest thing you've ever purchased that most people don't buy. It can be weird, novelty, obnoxious. I don't care.
the weirdest gift I've ever asked for was my mother-in-law. I asked her for a storm drum.
What is a storm drum?
It's a cylinder drum and it has a spring out the bottom. I can't show you because it's in the other room. It has a spring out the bottom and you shake it and it sounds like a storm. And my mother-in-law, bless her, is not spiritually minded, and she was like, "Why do you want that?" It's like, because I think I could use that. Although I haven't used it to space clear yet, but I might yet.
Yes, because now you've opened my mind that sound is such an important part of clearing energy, and I had no
Yeah.
idea. And of course, I have the sound bowl. My grandson's a drummer, so we have the pan drum. We have
How fab.
Oh my, we have a lot of crazy stuff too. So I'm gonna go look up this storm drum and I'm in. I'm completely in because anything that's weird or sound wise is fabulous and fantastic to me. I get obsessed with it. So, well, honey, this was a pleasure and hang in with me while I say goodbye to the listeners. But I thank you so much for your presence today, for ending your night so graciously and honoring me with your time that you'll never
Thank
be
you.
able to get back. And it's priceless and valued so much. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for
Thank
being
you.
the light worker that you are, my new friend Sam.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, listeners. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. How fantastic and interesting and just isn't it just amazing? The things that are there that we just don't see with the naked eye, but that we can believe because that's what belief is believing in something that you cannot see, that you don't have proof of or scientific whatever. We don't need it. We don't always need that proof, but know that there are people here in the world that can sort of look over behind that veil and tell you there's so much more going on, and most of them are the light workers who just want to do better for humanity and help one another and have love and compassion, and they're the helpers, they're the helper bees, and I just love it. I'm so happy that Sam crossed my path today. So I'm going to give you guys all the information in the show notes, and that's samangelguide.com in case you are wondering, but I'll have it for you. And then, of course, my stuff is lifecoachmaureen.com, and that's going to be for all of your coaching stuff, anything, readings. I can do my medium group or spirit guide readings. Sorry. You can contact me at lifecoachmaureen.com, as well as your self-confidence, self-love coaching, dating, and relationship coaching. And don't forget my books. My dog is more enlightened than I am. My dog is my relationship coach. And my children's book, My Dog Bexley, is just like me, that teaches mindfulness and emotions and self-care for your 0 to 6 year old little guys who develop that stuff very early, and they are very close to spirit in those moments. So let's instill some really, really good stuff into them in those first 6 years. So I love you all. Don't forget my doggy boutique where I make healthy treats for your puppies. Only 3 ingredients, no preservatives, because I want your puppies to be happy and healthy. And don't forget your felines. I also have products for your kitty cats, and we have apparel and you name it. It's online. MyDogIsEverything.net. I will ship that out in 24 hours. Other than that, I want you all to take care of yourself, take care of one another, and take care of my furry babies. Please go out there and adopt. Do not shop. There are plenty of puppies and kitties waiting for your love for a forever home. So until next week, y'all, I love you and take care. Mwah.